Hello, BookTube. This is part one of my April book haul. My original plan was to hold back on all of the books that I have hauled over the course of April, excluding manga, until all of these books had come in. However, I'm looking at my history tower, and I realize I need to split this April book haul into two parts. The first part, this part, is going to be fiction and poetry. And then next week, once the final two works of history come in, I will do the history haul either on Tuesday or Wednesday once they've all come. So let's get started with the fiction and poetry part of this April book haul, which I will title just Book Haul Fiction and Poetry. So first up, the lone work of fiction in this haul is The Life to Come by Michel de Krester. Set in Australia, France, and Sri Lanka, The Life to Come is about the stories we tell and don't tell ourselves as individuals, as societies, and as nations. Driven by a vivid cast of characters, it explores necessary immigration, the art of fiction, and ethnic and class conflict. Pippa is a writer who longs for success and eventually comes to fear that she missed everything important. Celeste tries to convince herself that her feelings for her married lover are reciprocated. Ash makes strategic use of his childhood in Sri Lanka, but blots out the memory of a tragedy from that time. Sri Lankan Christabel endures her dull job and envisions a brighter future that rose, glittered, and sank back, while she neglects the love close at hand. The standalone yet connected worlds of The Life to Come offer meditations on intimacy, loneliness, and our flawed perception of reality. Enormously moving, gorgeously observant of physical detail, and often very funny. This new novel by Michel de Krester reveals how the shadows cast by both the past and the future can transform and distort the present. It is teeming with life and earned wisdom, exhilaratingly contemporary with the feel of a classic. So I picked up this novel to add to my bench of Australian literature. April so one of the booktube events that takes place in April is Aussie April, in which participants read Australian literature over the course of the month of April. Every year I want to participate, and every year I mean to add more Australian literature to my collection, and every year I forget to do that. This year, I have a number of Australian works of literature, or works of Australian literature, that I want to add to my collection. One of them is Michel de Krester's most recent work, Theory and Practice, which is one of the books shortlisted currently for the Stella Prize, an Australian literary award that is Australia's version of the Women's Prize. Alongside a few others from that long list and short list that I'm interested in, as well as a classic of Australian literature, The Vivisector by Patrick White, all of whom are currently hanging out in various wish lists across the online bookstores that I shop at. So I was thinking about Theory and Practice, and it's currently only out in hardcover, and I wanted a paperback. So I looked at Michel de Krester's backlist and saw this book and thought it sounds interesting. So I picked it up from Libris, and will be reading it for the other Australian centered booktube event, Straya Timber. Was it Straya Timber? Which is the creation of Scott of Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. And hopefully other works of Australian literature will be joining it. We shall see. Now on to poetry. So First up is Bonefires, new and selected poems by Mark Jarman. Bonefires, new and selected poems by Mark Jarman, collects work from over 30 years and charts his spiritual development as he grows from a poet of childhood and nostalgia to a poet of adulthood and the struggle of faith. The section of new poems includes work published in such distinguished journals as American Poetry Review, Georgia Review, The New Republic, and Poetry, and in the yearly anthology Best American Poetry. As Library Journal noted in its recent estimation of epistles, while most of Jarman's poems explore faith in its many manifestations, there is something here transcendent that speaks to everyone. Highly recommended. Bonefires is a landmark collection by one of our nation's most distinguished poets. So I first encountered Eric Jarman's work through the Autumn House Anthology of Contemporary American Poetry, which I really liked the selection of his work in that anthology. Also encountered through the Autumn House Anthology of Contemporary American Poetry is Jane Kenyon. This is her collected poems, which does not have a blurb on the back, but it does have a poem. Let evening come. Let the light of late afternoon shine through chinks in the barn, moving up the bells as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let the stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. To the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to air in the lung, let every evening come. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let evening come. So again, I first encountered Jane Kenyon's work through the Autumn House Anthology of Contemporary American Poetry and quite enjoyed the selections of her work in that anthology as well. So I picked up both Things to Come and Bonefires through Liles, which is an online used bookstore that brings together a number of independent and small chain used bookstores to sell their wares online. Collected poems in the next two poetry collections I picked up from Pals, the great independent bookstore in Portland, Oregon, who I might be shopping with this coming Saturday for Independent Bookstore Day. We shall see. I was planning on shopping with them anyway soon, but so first up is Something About Living by Lena, Khalaf, Tuffaha. This won the National Book Award for Poetry last year. And it also won the 2022 Akron Poetry Prize, and it is published by Akron University Press, or the University of Akron Press. Ooh. It's nearly impossible to write poetry that holds the human desire for joy and the insistent agitations of protest at the same time. But Lena Khalaf Tuffaha's gorgeous and wide-ranging new collection, Something About Living, does just that. Her poems interweave Palestine's historic suffering, the challenges of living in this world full of violence and ill will, and the gentle delights we embrace to survive that violence. Khalaf Tuffaha's elegant poems sing the fractured songs of diaspora while remaining clear-eyed to the cause of the fracturing, the multinational hubris of colonialism and greed. This collection is her witness to our collective unraveling, vowel by vowel, syllable by syllable. Let the plural be a return of us. The speaker of On the 30th Friday We Consider Plurals says, and this plurality is our tenuous humanity and the deep need to hang on to kindness in our communities. In these poems, Khalaf Tuffaha reminds us that love isn't an idea, it is a radical act. especially for those who, like this poet, travel through the world vigilantly but steadfastly remain heart first. And this is from Adrian Mateka, author of Somebody Else Sold the World. More recent poetry collection is Bees and After by John Liles. This is the most recent entry in the Yale Younger Poets series. For John Liles, the 119th winner of the Yale Series of Younger Poets Prize, science and the natural world form a route into the workings of love, of grief, and of joy in the therm of life. Judge Ray Armentrout calls his poems dense, sonically gorgeous studies of various natural things and creatures, including light, bees, minerals, shellfish, and crabs, insects, and the workings and failure of the heart. Written under the shadow of our changing climate, Liles' poems are tender elegies, but also praise songs for the continual unfolding richness of the world. Writes Liles, "O unending animal, you go where the light goes." So I have read both Something About Living and Bees and After a few days ago and yesterday. So I'll talk about them this coming Friday weekly reads. And last but not least, another poetry collection, and also a selected collection of poetry. This is Psyche Running, Selected Poems 2005 to 2022 by Durs Grunbein, translated from the German by Karen Leeder. This is from Ilya Kaminsky. Meditative yet surprising, lyrical yet sweeping. This is the poetry of deep cultural knowledge, and yet also one that it impresses with its lasting emotive undertow. In the end, for me, Grunbein's is the poetry that is in conversation with time itself. Not so much its passage, but its ongoingness. One that knows that origin and home are just grains of sand in the shifting dunes of neurons, and yet believes in and converses with the spirit. So I picked this up very early in the month. I've been wanting to pick up this collection for about a year now. Last year I bought Durs Grunbein's Porcelain from the University of Chicago Press. It was one of the few poetry collections included in that year's big sale. And so I've been looking for an opportunity to add this selected collection of Durs Grunbein's poetry to my collection. And I decided to jump on it a few weeks ago when the University of Chicago Press had a sale on for a new work of history, which will lead off the history part of my April book haul. So anyway, BookTube, to recap, Psyche Running by Durs Grunbein, Bees and After by John Liles, Something About Love by Lena, Khalaf, Tuffaha, Collected Poems by Jane Kenyon, Bonfires by Mark Jarman, and The Life to Come by Michelle de Krester. Anyway, BookTube, I will be back shortly with a Thursday book tag. So until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.